A week before my daughter-in-law's wedding, I overheard my family planning to use me as a babysitter for 15 kids during the entire party. So, I changed my plans. On the day of the wedding, my son called me, desperate. "Where are you?" he yelled. I just laughed and told them not to wait for me, and not to expect the buffet I had promised to prepare either. My name is Antonella. I'm 72 years old, and I never thought that at my age, I would have to teach my own family such a harsh lesson. For months, I had been preparing everything for my son Marco's perfect wedding. I had promised to handle the entire buffet because I wanted to save them money. I figured it would cost me about $3,000 for all the ingredients, but I was doing it with love. I had also offered to decorate the hall, make the centerpieces, and coordinate with the vendors. It was my gift to them, my way of showing how much I loved my son and how happy I was that he had found love again. Viviana seemed like the perfect daughter-in-law when Marco introduced her to me 2 years ago. She was always so polite, calling me Mrs. Antonella with respect, bringing flowers when she visited, and always offering to help in the kitchen. "Mrs. Antonella, let me help you with those dishes," she'd say with that charming smile. "Your food is delicious. Marco is so lucky to have grown up eating like this." Marco was beaming with happiness. After years of being a widower, seeing him in love again filled my heart with joy. I was in my kitchen that Tuesday afternoon, making the final shopping list for the buffet, when I heard voices in the backyard. My son Marco was on the phone with someone from work, and Viviana was chatting with her sister Andrea, who was visiting from out of town. At first, I didn't pay any attention. I was focused on calculating how many pounds of meat I'd need to feed 150 guests, how many salads to prepare, how many desserts to make. But then I heard my name, and something in Viviana's tone made me stop. I quietly moved closer to the kitchen window overlooking the yard, staying hidden behind the curtain. "Look, Andrea, I already have everything perfectly organized for the kids at the wedding," Viviana was saying in that sweet voice she always used with me. "Marco's mom is going to watch them during the whole party. There are like 15 of them," she continued, "from babies to teenagers, but she's super used to it. That way, we adults can enjoy ourselves without any annoying interruptions." Andrea laughed loudly. "That's brilliant, sis. The old lady will be in charge of all those screaming brats while you guys dance, drink, and have fun. Perfect. They won't bother anyone during the ceremony or ruin the reception photos." "Exactly," Viviana went on, her voice sounding different now, colder. "I already told Marco that his mom is great with kids and that she loves taking care of them. She won't even realize we're using her. She's always willing to help with anything. It's like having a professional, free babysitter for the whole night. Besides, it keeps her busy so she's not wandering around interrupting important conversations." "And she agreed to it?" Andrea asked. "We didn't even ask her directly," Viviana chuckled. "Marco just mentioned there would be some kids at the wedding, and she immediately offered to help if we needed anything. Obviously, we said yes. She's perfect for the job, she has experience, and won't charge us a dime." I felt like I had been slapped across the face. There I was, in my own kitchen, my hands covered in flour from baking cookies for her wedding, spending my own money, my time, and my energy to make their day perfect, while they were plotting to use me like a free servant without even asking. "The best part," Viviana continued, "is that since she'll be busy with the kids all night, she won't be able to eat much from the buffet she's making. More food for the important guests." They both laughed as if it were the funniest joke in the world. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they might hear it. 72 years of life, raising children, caring for grandchildren, always putting my family first, and this is how they repaid me, as if I were a 24/7 on-call maid. I stood there behind the curtain, feeling a rage build up from my toes to the top of my head. But it wasn't just anger. It was a mix of pain, disappointment, and a humiliation so deep it made my chest ache. For 2 years, I had treated Viviana like the daughter I never had. I welcomed her into my home with open arms, included her in all our family traditions, and even taught her the secret recipes that had been passed down for generations. "You know what else I love about the plan?" Viviana went on, unaware that I was hearing every word. "Since the old lady will be chasing kids all night, she won't be able to butt into our adult conversations. You know how mothers-in-law are, always wanting to give their opinion on everything and telling boring stories about when Marco was little. Andrea burst out laughing. Oh my God, yes, my mother-in-law is the same way, always interrupting with her 50-year-old anecdotes that nobody cares about. At least yours will be useful for once. Exactly. And the best part is, Marco thinks his mom is offering out of love. He has no idea we planned it this way from the beginning. Men are so naive, Viviana said with a malicious giggle. I heard Marco's footsteps approaching as he finished his call. What are my beautiful girls laughing about? He asked in that love-struck voice he always used with Viviana. I was just telling Andrea how organized I am, Viviana replied, her tone instantly switching back to the sweet one I knew so well. I've already figured out a way to keep the guests' kids from being a nuisance at the wedding. Your mom is going to watch them. My mom is an angel, Marco said with pride, always ready to help the family. It's incredible how she still has the energy to run after kids at her age. Yes, it's very convenient to have a mother-in-law like that, Viviana murmured. But Marco didn't catch the sarcasm in her voice. I stepped away from the window, feeling sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. This woman, who had played the part of the perfect daughter-in-law for 2 years, who had made me feel loved and respected, who had even called me mom on special occasions, actually saw me as a free employee and a nuisance. I went up to my room, my legs trembling. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same one where I had slept with Marco's father for 30 years before cancer took him. I looked at the family photos on my nightstand. Marco graduating from college, his first communion, our beach vacations when he was little. I had dedicated my entire life to being the best mother possible, and now, when I thought I was gaining a daughter, I discovered I was just a useful tool. For the next few days, I acted as if nothing had happened. When Marco called to ask about the wedding preparations, I answered normally. Yes, honey, everything's going perfectly. The buffet is going to be delicious. When Viviana came to visit and said, Mrs. Antonella, don't worry too much about the wedding, try to relax and enjoy yourself, I just smiled and nodded. Of course, dear. I'm so excited. But inside, a plan was forming. If they wanted to play dirty, so could I. After all, I had lived 72 years, raised a child on my own after being widowed, managed a family business, and survived things they couldn't even imagine. I wasn't going to let them treat me like a servant right under my own nose. On Wednesday morning, 3 days after I heard that conversation, I called my best friend, Gabriella. We had known each other for over 40 years and had always been each other's confidants. Gabby, I need to tell you something, and then I need your help with a plan, I said without any preamble. Oh, Antonella, from the sound of your voice, I can already tell someone made you mad. Spill it, Gabriella replied, her curiosity piqued. I told her the whole story, from the conversation I overheard to how Viviana had been acting for 2 years. Gabriella listened in silence, and when I finished, she sighed deeply. Antonella, that girl is a snake. How dare she talk about you like that after everything you've done for them? You've spent a fortune on that wedding, dedicated months to organizing it, and this is how they repay you. I know, Gabby, but here's the good part. I have a plan, and I need your help. Tell me everything. You know I'm with you, whatever you need. I explained my idea, step by step. Gabriella got so excited she started clapping on the other end of the phone. Antonella, you're a genius. That spoiled brat is in for the surprise of her life. Count me in. I'll support you all the way. On Thursday, I started the first part of my plan. I called all the suppliers I had hired for the buffet. Good morning, this is Antonella Martinez. I need to cancel all the orders for this Saturday's wedding. Yes, I know it's last minute, but a family emergency has come up. Some tried to charge me penalties, but I managed to cancel everything by paying only small fees. Next, I called the florist where I had ordered the extra arrangements I was planning to gift them. Hi, I need to cancel the centerpieces for Saturday. No, I don't need them for another date. I simply won't be needing them anymore. On Friday night, the day before the wedding, I packed a small suitcase. I threw in clothes for 2 days, my medications, my favorite book, and a few personal items. Marco had called earlier to confirm everything was ready. Mom, how are the preparations going? Do you need me to come over and help with anything? No, honey. Everything is perfect. Tomorrow is going to be a wonderful day, I replied, my voice completely calm. Mom, you're the best. Viviana and I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for our wedding. You don't have to thank me for anything, Marco. Tomorrow, everything will turn out exactly as you planned. I barely slept that night, but it wasn't from nerves. It was from the excitement of knowing I was finally going to reclaim my dignity. On Saturday morning, the day of the wedding, I woke up earlier than ever. It was 5 a.m., and my eyes were wide open, filled with an energy I hadn't felt in years. I showered, did my hair, and put on my favorite coral-colored dress, the one that made me feel elegant. Not the dress I had planned to wear to the wedding, but a special one I saved for important occasions, and this was definitely an important day. Gabriella arrived at 7 on the dot, just as we had arranged. She had 2 suitcases and a mischievous smile that gave me courage. "Ready for your Independence Day, Antonella?" she asked, hugging me tightly. "More than ready, Gaby. I've been unknowingly waiting for this moment for 2 years." We had booked a luxury spa 2 hours out of the city, a beautiful place overlooking a lake where we could completely relax. The package included massages, facials, gourmet food, and a room with a jacuzzi. All the money I had saved for the wedding buffet, I was now going to spend on myself for the first time in decades. Before leaving, I wrote a letter and left it on the kitchen table, right where Marco always sat when he came to visit. "Dear Marco, by the time you read this, I will be enjoying a well-deserved rest. For months, I prepared everything to make your wedding perfect. But yesterday, I learned that you and Viviana had other plans for me. Apparently, my role on your special day was to be the free babysitter for 15 children for the entire party, without anyone bothering to ask me if I even wanted that job. Since the buffet I promised was also part of my unconsulted duties, I decided to cancel everything. I hope you find a quick solution. I'll be back Sunday night. With love, but also with dignity, Mom." As Gabriella loaded the bags into the car, I took one last look around my house. I looked at the kitchen where I had planned to cook all night for the buffet, the dining room where I had arranged the centerpieces, the living room where I had tried out different floral arrangements. All of it had been done with love, but that love had been misinterpreted as an obligation. "Antonella, are you sure about this?" Gabriella asked as I got in the car. "Because once we drive away, there's no turning back." "Gaby, I'm 72 years old. If I don't respect myself now, when will I?" "Start the car." The drive to the spa was liberating. As the landscape flew by, Gabriella and I talked about everything we had been through together over the years. "Remember when our kids were little and we thought the biggest problem was getting them to eat their vegetables?" Gabriella laughed. "I miss those simple problems," I replied. "At least back then, when you did something out of love, it was received as love, not servitude." We arrived at the spa at 10 in the morning. The place was even more beautiful than the pictures online. Perfectly manicured gardens, a spectacular view of the lake, and an atmosphere of peace that calmed me instantly. The receptionist greeted us with champagne and strawberries. "Welcome, ladies. Your rooms are ready, and your treatments will begin in an hour. Is this a special occasion?" "Yes," I replied with a genuine smile. "I'm celebrating my independence." As I settled into my beautiful room with a lake view, I started to imagine what was happening back in the city. The wedding was supposed to start at 4 p.m., but the buffet preparations would normally begin very early. Marco would probably start calling around 9 to ask if I needed help carrying the food. At 11:30, just as I was heading in from my first massage, my phone started ringing. It was Marco. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, it rang again and again. I turned off the phone. "Mrs. Antonella, is everything all right?" the massage therapist asked, noticing my smile. "Everything's perfect, dear. Please, continue." For the next 3 hours, I dedicated myself completely to enjoyment. The hot stone massage relaxed muscles I didn't even know were tense. The facial left my skin glowing. Gabriella and I had lunch at the spa's restaurant, delicious food that I didn't have to cook, served by people who treated me with respect and kindness. "You know what I love most about all this?" I said to Gabriella as we sipped white wine on the terrace overlooking the lake. "What's that?" "That for the first time in 2 years, I'm doing exactly what I want to do, when I want to do it. without having to ask anyone if it's okay or if they need me to do something else first. Gabriella raised her glass. I'll drink to that. And to the look on Viviana's face right now. At 3 p.m., I decided to turn my phone back on. I had 17 missed calls from Marco, 8 text messages, and surprisingly, 3 calls from Viviana. Marco had never called me so many times in a row in his entire life, not even when his father was in the hospital. The text messages grew increasingly desperate. Mom, where are you? We've been calling you all morning. Mom, I found your letter. Please, call me urgently. Mom, the wedding starts in an hour. Please answer. Mom, where's the food? The guests are already arriving. Mom, please, we can talk about this after the wedding. Right now we need to solve the buffet situation. Mom, Viviana is crying. Please, help us. The last message had arrived 15 minutes ago. Mom, I know you're angry, but there are 15 kids here and we don't know what to do with them. Their parents are asking who is going to watch them. I took a deep breath and dialed Marco's number. He answered on the first ring. Mom, where are you? He shouted with a desperation I had never heard in his voice before. Hello, honey. I'm at a beautiful spa with Gabriella, enjoying a chocolate massage. How's your wedding going? Mom, this can't be happening. The guests have arrived and there's no food. The caterers are wondering where the buffet is. Viviana won't stop crying. Oh, honey, didn't you read my letter? I explained everything in there. I canceled the buffet when I found out my real job was to be the babysitter, not a guest. But Mom, the wedding has already started. We can't cancel now. Marco, you're a grown man, 45 years old, with a good job and a fiancé who is apparently a very good planner. I'm sure you'll figure something out. Isn't there a fast food place nearby? Mom, you can't be serious. Honey, I've never been more serious in my life. Enjoy your wedding. We're going to enjoy our spa. Oh, and don't expect us back early tomorrow. We're having breakfast here too. Wait, Mom, Viviana wants to talk to you. I heard shuffling, crying in the background, and desperate voices. Then, Viviana's voice, no longer sweet. Antonella, you can't do this to us. You promised the buffet. There are 150 people here. Viviana, dear, I replied in the calmest voice I could manage. I promised the buffet when I thought I was a special guest at your wedding. But when I found out I was actually the unpaid help, I changed my mind. As they say, you get what you pay for, and I was never paid for my services. But the children? There are 15 kids here, and their parents expect someone to watch them. Yes, I imagine that must be very difficult. Don't you have a sister who could help? What was her name? Andrea? I hear she thinks I'm great with kids. The silence on the other end of the phone was delicious. It lasted a few seconds that felt like an eternity. I could hear the chaos in the background, children crying, adults talking loudly, and what sounded like someone desperately moving tables and chairs. How? How do you know about Andrea? Viviana stammered. And for the first time in 2 years, her voice sounded broken, stripped of that false confidence she always projected. Oh, honey, you learn a lot of things when you're 72. One of them is that walls have ears, especially when people talk so loudly in my own backyard. Antonella, please, we can talk about this later. Right now I need you to. No, Viviana, you don't need anything from me. From what I heard, what you need is a professional babysitter. I suggest you look in the yellow pages. I think they charge about $20 an hour per child. Let's see. 15 kids for 6 hours. That's $1,800. A bargain compared to the $3,000 I spent on your buffet. I heard Viviana yell to someone in the background. Marco, your mother has lost her mind. She says she knows everything we talked about. Then I heard Marco's voice again, but it sounded different now, deeper, like when he was a boy and knew he'd done something wrong. Mom, you heard us talking in the yard. I heard a lot of interesting things, son. For example, that I'm a little old lady who's useful for keeping busy so I don't interrupt important adult conversations. I also heard that I'm apparently so used to watching kids that I won't even notice I'm being used. And my personal favorite, that I'm like having a professional free babysitter for the whole night. The silence was even longer this time. Gabriella, who had been listening to the whole conversation from her chair on the terrace, gave me a thumbs up. Mom. Marco began, his voice like a scolded child. Marco, you are 45 years old. You're a successful, intelligent, grown man. Did it seriously never occur to you to ask me if I wanted to spend my only son's wedding chasing after 15 children instead of enjoying the celebration? We thought you liked taking care of kids. I like taking care of my grandchildren from time to time, Marco. I don't like being the official wedding nanny without being consulted. And I definitely don't like hearing my daughter-in-law think I'm a nuisance who needs to be kept busy so I don't bother anyone. Viviana didn't say that. Marco, I'm 72. I don't have Alzheimer's. I heard every word. I heard when your fiancé told her sister how brilliant it was to get a free babysitter. I heard when they laughed about how I wouldn't get to eat much of the buffet because I'd be too busy. I heard when Andrea said that at least her mother-in-law would be useful for once. This time the silence was broken by a child screaming in the background and a woman's voice saying, "Where's the lady who was supposed to watch the children? My son ran off and is running all over the garden." "There's your answer, son," I said. "The show has already started. Mom, please, come. We'll pay you. We'll give you $500 to watch the kids." I laughed so hard Gabriella jumped. $500? Marco, 5 minutes ago this was a family favor I was supposed to do out of love. And now that you realize I'm not as dumb as you thought, you want to pay me $500 to ruin my coral dress chasing after children I don't even know? $1,000, Viviana shouted in the background. Viviana, dear, there's not enough money in the world to get me to that wedding now. But I'll give you some free advice. Next time you plan on using someone as an employee, ask them first. It's common courtesy. $2,000, Marco yelled, sounding completely desperate now. Marco, my son, listen to me carefully. If you had $2,000 to pay me to be a nanny, you also had money to hire a caterer instead of making me spend my retirement savings on your wedding buffet. But I guess it was more convenient for Mom to pay for everything and work for free, right? Gabriella poured me more wine and whispered, "You're brilliant, my friend." Mom, Marco's voice was cracking now. "Please, don't do this to me. It's my wedding." Marco, I'm not doing anything to you. You did something to me. You and your fiancé decided I was your personal employee without consulting me. I'm just deciding that I don't accept the job. But we can't get a caterer at this hour. The guests are going to starve. You know what that's called, son? Planning. When you organize a wedding, you're supposed to make sure you have food and childcare. You assumed you had both for free, but you were wrong. Antonella, you get here right now or we will never forgive you, Viviana shrieked, her true personality finally coming out. There it is, I said to Gabriella, covering the phone. There's the real Viviana. I uncovered the phone and replied in the calmest voice in the world. Viviana, dear, there's nothing to forgive. You planned to use me. I decided not to be used. It's that simple. And frankly, after hearing your true tone of voice, I'm very glad I'm not there. You're a selfish old woman. You ruined my wedding, Viviana screamed. No, dear, you ruined your wedding when you decided it was more important to save money than to treat your mother-in-law with respect. I just decided not to be an accomplice in my own humiliation. Marco got back on the phone. Mom, the kids are running everywhere. One of them got into the kitchen and knocked over the cake. Another is hiding under the main table. The parents are furious. Marco, where is the brilliant Andrea? Can't she help her sister with the kids? Andrea says she didn't know she was supposed to watch kids, that it was your job. How convenient. The same Andrea who was laughing about the old lady taking care of all the screaming brats now can't help? Mom, please. Marco, I'm hanging up now because my chocolate massage is waiting. But before I go, let me tell you something. I hope this experience teaches you that your mother is not your personal employee. I am a 2-year-old woman who deserves respect, not a servant you can use whenever it's convenient. Wait, Mom. What, Marco? You're really not coming? I'm really not coming. Enjoy your wedding. We're going to enjoy our spa. And tomorrow? We'll see about tomorrow. First, I want you to reflect on what happened here, and I want your wife to reflect on what it means to be a family. But, Mom, Marco, I have to go. My massage therapist is waiting for me and, unlike you, she treats me with respect because I'm paying for her services. I hung up the phone and put it on silent. Gabriella was applauding. Antonella, that was masterful. How do you feel? I feel free, Gaby. For the first time in 2 years, I feel completely free. After hanging up, I sat on the spa terrace, looking out at the lake and feeling a peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. Gabriella watched me with a mix of admiration and concern. Antonella, are you sure you did the right thing? She asked, taking a sip of her wine. I mean, I know you were right, but Marco is your only son. Gaby, it's precisely because he's my only son that I need to teach him this lesson. If I don't do it now, Viviana will turn him into someone who treats his own mother like an employee, and I will not allow that. For the next 2 hours, my phone buzzed constantly, but I kept it on silent. Gabriella and I enjoyed our spa treatments as if nothing was wrong. The collagen facial left my skin as smooth as a baby's, and the aromatic oil massage relaxed muscles that had been tense for years from the stress of trying to be the perfect grandmother. You know what the funniest part of all this is? I said to Gabriella while we were in the jacuzzi overlooking the sunset. What's that? That for 2 years I tried so hard to be the ideal mother-in-law that I lost my own identity. I cooked what she liked, decorated how she thought was pretty. I even changed the way I dressed to fit her image of the perfect grandma. I always thought that was weird, Gabriella admitted. You, who were always so independent, suddenly seemed like you were asking for permission for everything. You were right, and the worst part is, the harder I tried to please her, the less she respected me. To her, my willingness to help was weakness, not love. At 8 p.m. I decided to check my phone. I had 43 missed calls, 26 text messages, and to my surprise, several messages from unknown numbers. Apparently, some relatives had gotten my number to try to convince me to come back. The messages were increasingly desperate and revealing. Marco, Mom, we had to order pizza for all the guests. We spent $1,2 on pizza. Marco, Mom, the parents of 3 of the kids have already left angry because no one could watch them. Marco, Mom, Viviana is in the bathroom crying. She says you ruined the most important day of her life. Marco, Mom, the photographer is asking if he can take family photos. I told him the grandmother couldn't make it. Unknown number. This is Miguel, Viviana's father. Please, Mrs. Antonella, come and help us. My daughter is devastated. Another unknown number. Antonella, this is Andrea. I know you heard our conversation. Please forgive us. It was just a joke. I laughed reading Andrea's message. A joke, Gaby? Planning to use someone as a free employee is a very expensive joke. But the message that caught my attention the most was from a number I didn't recognize. Unknown number, Mrs. Antonella. This is Carmen, the mother of one of the children at the wedding. I wanted to tell you that several of us parents are very upset because we were told there would be someone watching the children, and it turns out there's no one. Some of us have already left. What they did to you is not right. Look at this, Gaby. I showed the message to Gabriella. Apparently, I'm not the only one who thinks what they did was wrong. Of course not. Any decent person would realize that treating the groom's mother like that is unacceptable. At 9 p.m., as we were having dinner in the spa's elegant restaurant, my phone rang again. This time it was a number I recognized. My sister-in-law Elena, my late husband's sister. Antonella, what's going on? Marco called me crying, saying you didn't go to his wedding. Elena had always been direct and honest with me. I told her the whole story from the beginning, including the conversation I'd overheard. Antonella, you did the absolute right thing, she said without a moment's hesitation. If my brother were alive, he would have gone over there himself to teach Marco a lesson. Nobody treats their mother like that, especially not after everything you've done for that family. Do you really think I did the right thing, Elena? Antonella, I've known Marco since he was born. He's a good kid, but that woman has him completely manipulated. It was about time someone opened his eyes. And if that someone had to be you, his own mother, then so be it. Elena told me that other family members had already found out what happened because Marco had been calling everyone for help. Most of them are on your side, Antonella. Your cousin Rosa said she always thought Viviana was fake, and your nephew Carlos is furious with Marco for treating you like this. After talking to Elena, I felt even more secure in my decision. I wasn't being a cruel mother. I was being a mother who respects herself and teaches her son to do the same. At 10 p.m., Gabriella and I went back to our rooms. I had a beautiful suite with a private terrace overlooking the lake. I put on my most comfortable nightgown, poured myself a glass of wine from the minibar, and sat on the terrace to watch the stars. My phone kept buzzing, but it didn't bother me anymore. Each vibration was a confirmation that I had made the right choice. If Marco and Viviana were truly sorry, they would have sent a sincere apology instead of trying to manipulate me into solving their problem. Finally, at 11, I decided to read the messages that had come in over the last few hours. Marco, Mom, the wedding is over. It was a total disaster. Marco, the kids broke 2 centerpieces and stained a guest's dress. Marco, Viviana's sister had to watch some of the kids and she's furious with us. Marco, Viviana says she'll never forgive me for my mom ruining her wedding. Marco, Mom, why are you doing this to me? I thought you loved me. That last message stung my heart, but it also confirmed that Marco still didn't get it. This wasn't about love. It was about respect. I could love my son with all my heart and at the same time refuse to let him disrespect me. I decided to reply only to that last message. Me, Marco, it's precisely because I love you that I won't allow you to treat me like an employee. A son who loves his mother doesn't plan to use her without asking. A son who loves his mother doesn't let his wife mock her. I love you, but I also love myself, and it was time you knew that. The reply came immediately. Marco, Mom, Viviana is saying maybe it's best if we move to another city. She says she can't live in the same place as someone who ruined her wedding. I read that message 3 times. Viviana was playing her final card. Emotional blackmail. Threatening to take Marco away from me. Me, Marco. If Viviana wants to move because she can't face the consequences of her own actions, that's a decision you two have to make as adults. But know this. A woman who truly loves you would never pull you away from your family as punishment for something you didn't even do. There was no response after that. I stayed on the terrace late into the night, listening to the sound of the lake and feeling a profound sense of peace. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't worried about pleasing someone else. I wasn't thinking about what I could cook for Marco tomorrow or what favor Viviana might need. I was thinking about me, about Antonella, the 72-year-old woman who had raised a wonderful son, who had maintained a happy marriage for 30 years, who had survived widowhood with dignity, and who deserved to be treated with respect by her own family. That night, I slept better than I had in months. On Sunday morning, I woke up with a strange feeling. I felt rested and at peace. It had been a long time since I'd woken up without the constant anxiety of thinking about what I needed to do to keep everyone happy. Gabriella and I had agreed to meet for breakfast at 9, but I was already awake at 7, enjoying the silence and the view from my terrace. My phone had been silent all night, which felt more significant than all the desperate messages from the day before. Had Marco finally understood, or was he so angry that he had decided not to speak to me anymore? Either option seemed better than continuing to receive manipulative messages. When Gabriella and I met for breakfast, she looked at me curiously. You look different, Antonella. Lighter. I feel different, Gabby. It's like I've been carrying a huge weight on my shoulders for 2 years and I've finally put it down. We ordered a full breakfast with fresh fruit, yogurt, pancakes, and Colombian coffee. We talked about everything except the wedding. We discussed our plans for the coming months, the books we wanted to read, the trips we had always dreamed of taking, but always postponed to be available for our families. You know what, Gaby? I think we're going to take that trip to Europe we've always planned. Really? You're not going to wait and see if Marco and Viviana need you to watch their future children? Marco is 45 years old. If he decides to have kids, he can hire a nanny like everyone else. I'll be available as a grandmother, not as an employee. After breakfast, we decided to extend our stay a little longer. We booked the private jacuzzi for 2 more hours and spent the morning completely relaxing. At noon, as we were packing to leave, I decided to turn my phone on again. I had 3 new messages, all from Marco, sent in the early morning. Marco. Mom, Viviana and I talked all night. She's very hurt, but she admits that maybe we didn't treat you well. Marco. We can talk when you get back. The messages sounded different. Less desperate, more thoughtful. But I also noticed something important. There was no real apology, just an admission that maybe they hadn't treated me well. Maybe wasn't good enough for what had happened. I decided not to reply yet. I wanted to get home, settle in, and think carefully about what I wanted to say. The drive back was calm. Gabriella and I talked about what this weekend had meant to me. You know the most important thing I learned, Gabby? That you can love your family and set boundaries at the same time. All these years I thought loving meant saying yes to everything, but now I understand that sometimes loving means saying no. That's a lesson a lot of women from our generation need to learn, Gabriella replied. We were raised to believe our value depended on how much we sacrificed for others. I got home at 5 in the afternoon. The house felt different, as if it had been empty for much longer than 2 days. I made myself some tea, put on my comfiest clothes, and sat in my favorite armchair. It was time to decide what to do next. At 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I looked out the window and saw Marco's car. He was standing at my door, alone, with his head down. I took a deep breath and went to open it. "Hi, Mom," he said softly. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "Hello, Marco. Come in." We sat in the living room, him on the sofa, and me in my armchair. The silence stretched for a few minutes until Marco finally spoke. "Mom, I need to apologize." "I'm listening." Viviana and I talked all night after the wedding. At first, she was furious with you, but when I told her exactly what you overheard, she realized how bad everything she said sounded. "And you realized it too?" Marco lowered his head even more. "Yes, Mom. I realized that for 2 years, I've been treating you like my employee instead of my mother. And how do you feel about that?" "I feel horrible. I'm ashamed. Dad must be rolling in his grave over how I treated the woman he loved for 30 years. The mention of his father touched my heart, but I kept my composure. "Marco, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about the wedding. It's about 2 years of assuming I was available for everything without ever asking if I wanted to do it." "I know, Mom. And you're right. When Viviana suggested we ask for your help with something, I never stopped to think if it was fair to you. I just thought, Mom always says yes, so it's not a problem. Period." "And Viviana? How does she really feel?" Marco sighed deeply. "She's ashamed. She says she's never had a mother-in-law before and didn't know how to act. But she recognizes that what she said about you with Andrea was very wrong." "Marco, does she recognize that? Or are you just trying to soften what she really thinks?" "No, Mom. She recognizes it. In fact, she wants to come and apologize to you in person, but I told her I had to talk to you first." I got up and walked to the window. My garden looked neglected. I'd been so busy with wedding prep that I hadn't had time to tend to my flowers. "Marco, I need to ask you a very direct question, and I want you to be honest. Does Viviana respect me as a person, or does she see me as a useful resource that's available when she needs it?" Marco was quiet for a long moment. "Mom, I think until yesterday, those two things had gotten mixed up. But after seeing the consequences of treating you like a resource, she realized she had lost sight of the person. And you? Do you see me as your mother, or as your personal employee?" "Mom, that question hurts, but I understand why you're asking. And the honest answer is that over these past 2 years, without realizing it, I started to see you more as someone who solved my problems than as my mother who deserved to be consulted and respected." I sat down again and looked him straight in the eye. "Marco, I appreciate your honesty, but I need you to understand that things are going to change from now on." "I understand, Mom. What do you need from us?" "I need that the next time you want to ask me for a favor, you ask if I can, and if I want to do it, not assume I'll say yes. I need you to treat me like a guest at your family events, not as the service staff. And I need Viviana to understand that I am her husband's mother, not her employee." "All of that is fair, Mom. Anything else?" "Yes. I need you to understand that I have the right to say no without giving an explanation. And when I say no, you won't try to manipulate me or make me feel guilty to change my mind. Understood? And Marco, one more thing. The next time Viviana speaks badly of me to anyone, you are going to defend me. You are not going to stand by silently while your wife disrespects me." Marco nodded vigorously. "You're right, Mom. I should have defended you from the beginning." We sat in silence for a few minutes. I could see Marco was processing everything we'd talked about. "Mom, will you forgive me?" "Marco, you are my son, and I will always love you. But forgiveness is something that is built with actions, not just words. I need to see real changes in how you treat me before I can say everything is forgiven." "That's fair. And Viviana? Will you give her a chance to apologize? If she wants to apologize sincerely, not because you told her to, but because she truly regrets how she treated me, then yes, I will listen." "She wants to, Mom, but she's afraid you'll reject her." "Marco, I don't reject people who apologize sincerely, but I also don't accept fake apologies just to keep the peace." "I understand. When would be a good time for her to come?" "Give her a few days to think carefully about what she wants to say. And Marco, make sure she understands that I don't expect her to pretend we're best friends overnight. I just expect basic respect." Marco stayed a while longer, and for the first time in a long time, we had a real mother-son conversation, not a boss-employee one. He told me how he'd felt during the wedding, watching guests wonder why there was no food and why children were running unsupervised everywhere. "Mom, when the parents started asking me where the person who was supposed to watch the kids was, I realized that we had never actually asked you if you wanted to do that job. We just assumed. And how did you feel when you realized that?" "I felt like an idiot, Mom. And I felt ashamed that my own mother had to teach me such a basic lesson about respect." When Marco left that night, I thought about our conversation. He seemed genuinely sorry, but I also knew that apologies come easy when you're faced with the consequences of your actions. The real test would be to see if the changes lasted beyond this crisis. The next 3 days were quiet. I didn't get any calls asking for favors, no messages assuming I'd be available for something. It was a strange but liberating feeling. For the first time in 2 years, my days were completely my own. On Wednesday afternoon, Marco called. "Mom, Viviana would like to come talk to you tomorrow afternoon, if you're okay with that." "Is she sure she wants to? Or does she feel obligated?" "She's sure, Mom. She's been very quiet these past few days, reflecting on everything that happened." "All right. Tell her to come tomorrow at 4. "Thanks, Mom. It means a lot to both of us that you're giving her this chance." "Marco, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me, because I want to know if this situation can be fixed or if I need to accept that my daughter-in-law and I will never get along." On Thursday at 4 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I was surprised to see Viviana. She looked completely different from how I'd always seen her. She wore no makeup, her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she was dressed in jeans and a plain blouse. But the most striking thing was her expression. She no longer had that perfect smile she always wore. She looked vulnerable, almost fragile. "Hello, Mrs. Antonella," she said softly. "Thank you for seeing me. Come in, Viviana. Sit wherever you'd like." She sat on the edge of the sofa, as if ready to run at any moment. I sat in my armchair and waited for her to speak. "I don't know how to start," she admitted after a few minutes of silence. "Start wherever you feel comfortable. Mrs. Antonella, I want to apologize for everything I said about you. It was cruel, disrespectful, and completely unfair." "And why did you say it?" Viviana looked down. "Why? Because I'm 26 years old, and I've never had a mother-in-law before. My mom died when I was 15, and my dad remarried a woman who never liked me. When I met Marco and you, I didn't know how to handle having a mother figure again. And your solution was to treat me like an employee? It wasn't conscious, Mrs. Antonella. At first, you intimidated me. You're so self-assured, so good at everything you do, so loved by the whole family. I felt like I could never measure up. Viviana, that doesn't explain why you spoke about me that way to your sister." Viviana was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "Because when you feel insecure, sometimes you try to feel better by making others seem less important. I know it sounds horrible, but it's the truth. At least you're being honest. Mrs. Antonella, when you didn't show up to the wedding and I read your letter, I realized something terrible. I realized I had been trying to turn Marco into someone who put my comfort before his own mother. And that's so wrong. And how do you feel about that now?" "I feel ashamed. I feel guilty. and I feel sad because I missed the chance to have a real relationship with the woman who raised the man I love. Tears started to roll down her cheeks, and for the first time since I'd known her, they seemed genuine, not calculated. Viviana, I appreciate your honesty, but I need to ask you something directly. Do you really want a relationship with me, or do you just want to fix this to make Marco happy? At first, I admit, I just wanted to fix things so Marco wouldn't be sad. But these past few days I've been thinking a lot, and I realized that I lost something important too. I lost the chance to have a mother again. Viviana, I can't be your mother. Your mother passed away, and no one can replace her. But I can be your mother-in-law who respects you and expects respect in return. That's all I want, Mrs. Antonella. Mutual respect and a chance to start over. And are you willing to truly change the way you treat me? Yes. I will no longer assume you're available to help us. I will ask you before planning anything that involves you, and I will try to include you as family, not as service staff. And what happens if I say no to something you ask? Then I will respect your decision without trying to make you feel guilty. We sat in silence for a few minutes. I could see Viviana was waiting for my answer, but I needed time to process everything she'd said. Viviana, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't trust you yet. You're going to have to prove to me with your actions that these changes are real, not just words to get out of trouble. I completely understand. What do you need me to do? I need time. I need to see how you treat me in the coming months when you're not in a crisis, when things go back to normal. Will you give me that opportunity? Yes, Viviana. I will give you one chance. But it will be the only one. If you disrespect me or treat me like an employee again, there won't be a second chance. I understand. And, Mrs. Antonella, is there anything specific I can do to start rebuilding your trust? I thought about her question for a moment. Yes, there is. I want you to tell your sister Andrea what really happened. Not a watered-down version, but the whole truth. I want her to understand that what you two said about me was wrong. Viviana nodded immediately. I already did, Mrs. Antonella. I called her on Monday and told her everything. She wants to apologize to you, too. I don't need an apology from Andrea. I don't know her well enough for her opinions to matter to me. But I do need her to understand that she can't speak about me that way when she comes to my house. She understands. In fact, she's very embarrassed about what she said. All right. Anything else you want to say? Yes. I want to thank you for teaching us this lesson. I know it wasn't your responsibility to educate us about respect, but you did it in a way we'll never forget. Viviana, I didn't want to teach you a lesson. I just wanted to be treated with dignity, and you had every right to demand that. Mrs. Antonella, do you think we can ever have a normal mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship? That's going to depend on you, Viviana. I'm willing to try if you really change. I will change. I promise you. Don't promise me anything. Just show me. Viviana got up to leave, but before she reached the door, she turned back to me. Mrs. Antonella, can I ask you something? Go ahead. How can I be a good daughter-in-law? I seriously don't know how. Her question surprised me with its simplicity and honesty. Viviana, being a good daughter-in-law, is the same as being a good person. Treat others how you want to be treated. Ask before you assume. Respect boundaries. And remember that behind every favor someone does for you, there's a person who chose to help. Can I ask you when I have questions about something? If they are genuine questions and not disguised manipulation, yes. Thank you, Mrs. Antonella, for everything. When Viviana left, I sat in my living room feeling a mix of cautious hope and emotional exhaustion. The conversation had seemed sincere, but only time would tell if the changes would last. The next 2 weeks were revealing. For the first time in 2 years, Marco and Viviana didn't call asking for any favors. There were no messages assuming I'd be available to cook, clean, or take care of something. At first, I thought they were angry and giving me the silent treatment, but then I realized they were simply respecting my space like never before. The first real test came on the Friday of the second week. Marco called around 7 p.m., and when I saw his name, I automatically thought, what do they need now? But I was pleasantly surprised. Hi, Mom. How are you? I'm well, son. And you? Good, too. Mom, I'm calling to ask if you'd like to have dinner with us on Sunday. Viviana is going to cook. We thought it would be nice to spend time together. I was silent for a moment, processing that he had made a real invitation, not a disguised assignment. Viviana is cooking? You don't expect me to cook? No, Mom, not at all. We want to invite you as our guest. You just have to show up and enjoy. And do I need to bring anything? Dessert? Wine? Something like that? Just bring yourself, Mom. That's all we need. I accepted the invitation, but with some caution. I had learned not to trust completely until I saw the actions. On Sunday, I arrived at their house at 6 p.m., carrying only a bottle of wine that I had bought because I wanted to, not because they had asked me to. When Viviana opened the door, she looked nervous but genuinely happy to see me. "Hello, Mrs. Antonella. So glad you came. Please come in." The table was set for 3, with nice plates and simple but elegant decoration. I could smell something delicious cooking. "What are you making?" I asked. "Roasted chicken with vegetables. I hope you like it. I followed a recipe online, but I don't know if it's as good as your cooking. I'm sure it's delicious." During dinner, the conversation was different from any we'd had before. Instead of talking about what they needed or what plans involved me, we talked about normal things, how my week had been, what book I was reading, the day's news. Viviana had made a real effort with the food. It wasn't perfect, the chicken was a little dry and the vegetables a bit salty, but she had put love into it. And, more importantly, she didn't ask me to help serve, clean, or do anything other than enjoy the meal. "Mrs. Antonella," Viviana said, as she served a store-bought dessert, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. How did you meet Marco's dad? He's told me a little, but I'd like to hear it from you." I was surprised she wanted to know more about our family history, not as useful information, but out of genuine curiosity. I told her about how I met Roberto in college, how we fell in love, the early years of our marriage, the birth of Marco. "It sounds like you were very happy," Viviana commented. "We were. 30 wonderful years. Of course we had our problems like all couples, but we always respected each other." What was the secret? There were no secrets, Viviana. Just honest communication and the daily decision to choose love over pride. Marco smiled. "Dad used to say that Mom was his best friend in addition to being his wife. And he was mine. That's why it hurt so much when I felt that you two didn't see me as part of the family, but as someone useful you could use." "That will never happen again," Viviana said firmly. "I promise." "Don't promise, Viviana. Just show me, day by day." After dinner, something unexpected happened. Marco got up and started clearing the plates. "Mom, you sit and relax. Viviana and I will clean up. Are you sure?" "I can help." "No, Mom. You're our guest," Viviana said. "We've got this." I sat in the living room, listening to Marco and Viviana in the kitchen, washing dishes and talking softly. It was the first time in 2 years they had treated me like a guest instead of staff. When they finished, we sat in the living room for coffee. The conversation remained natural and comfortable. Viviana asked about my friends, my hobbies, my plans, questions a normal daughter-in-law would ask, not a boss to her employee. "Mrs. Antonella," Viviana said, as I was getting ready to leave, "would you be available for lunch next Saturday? There's a new restaurant I wanted to try, and I thought maybe you'd like to join us." "Just lunch? You don't need me to do anything else?" "Just lunch. As a family? Then yes, I'd love that." When I got home that night, I felt optimistic for the first time since the wedding. It seemed Marco and Viviana were really making an effort. The following days confirmed my impression. Marco called midweek, but not for a favor. He just wanted to know how I was and to tell me he got a promotion at work. "That's wonderful, son. Congratulations." "Thanks, Mom. I wanted you to be the first to know." "And how are you going to celebrate?" "Viviana wants to take me to a fancy dinner on Friday. Would you like to join us?" Another genuine invitation, no hidden agenda. "I'd love to, Marco." On Friday night, we went to a beautiful restaurant downtown. Viviana had made the reservation and handled all the details. We celebrated Marco's success like a normal family. No one asked me to organize, cook, or take charge of anything. "Mom," Marco said as we toasted with champagne, "I want to thank you for teaching us how to be a real family." "What do you mean?" "Before, we had a toxic dynamic where you did everything and we took advantage. Now, we have a real relationship where we all contribute and we all enjoy. And it's so much better this way, Viviana added. I'd never experienced what it's like to have a family where everyone takes care of each other, instead of one person taking care of everyone else. That night, driving home, I reflected on the changes. The wedding boycott had been painful but necessary. Sometimes you have to break something completely to rebuild it the right way. The next big test came 2 weeks later. Marco called me on a Tuesday afternoon, and from his tone, I could tell he was nervous. "Mom, I need to ask you for a favor." My heart sank a little. Were they going back to the old patterns? "What is it, Marco?" "Saturday is Viviana's birthday, and I wanted to throw her a surprise party. Could you help me organize it?" "Marco, are you asking me to organize the whole party for you?" "No, Mom, not at all. I've already hired the caterer, booked the venue, and sent the invitations. I just need help with the decorations, because you have such great taste. But obviously, I'll pay you for your time and ideas." I was shocked. Marco had done most of the work himself. He was only asking for specific help with something he knew I was good at, and he was offering to pay me. "Marco, you don't need to pay me to help with decorations. I can do that as a gift for Viviana, but I appreciate that you asked instead of assuming. So you'll really help?" "Of course. I think it's a very sweet gesture." "Thanks, Mom. And if at any point you feel it's too much work, just tell me and I'll hire someone else." "It's fine, son." That conversation confirmed that the changes were real. Marco had learned to plan his own events, not assume my availability, and offer compensation for my time. But more importantly, he had learned to give me an out without making me feel guilty. The day of Viviana's birthday party was a complete revelation. Marco and I spent the morning decorating his backyard with gold balloons and fresh flowers. He had bought all the materials and just needed my ideas on how to combine the colors and where to place everything. We worked together as a team, chatting and laughing. "Mom, this looks beautiful," Marco said as we hung the last string of lights. "Viviana is going to be so thrilled." "I hope so. It's clear you love her very much." "I do. But I also learned that loving my wife doesn't mean I stop respecting my mother." "I'm glad you learned that, son." When Viviana arrived that night, her surprise was genuine and touching. Seeing the decorated yard and all her friends waiting, she started to cry with joy. "I can't believe you did all this," she exclaimed, hugging Marco. "Mrs. Antonella helped me with the decorations," Marco told her. "She has an incredible talent." Viviana came over and gave me a sincere hug. "Thank you, Mrs. Antonella. Everything looks gorgeous." "It was a pleasure to help, Viviana. Happy birthday." During the party, I watched how they interacted with me. They included me in conversations, introduced me to their friends as Marco's mom with pride, not as the lady who helped decorate. They sat me at the main table, as family. The most significant moment was when one of Viviana's friends commented on the beautiful decorations. "Viviana, you have exquisite taste. Where did you learn to decorate like this?" "Actually, it was Mrs. Antonella who designed everything," Viviana replied immediately. "She has a natural talent for these things. I was just lucky she helped me. Instead of taking credit for my work, she gave it all to me. It was a small but meaningful change." 2 months after the disastrous wedding, I got an unexpected call. It was Carmen, the mother who had sent me that supportive text. "Mrs. Antonella, I hope you remember me." "Of course I remember you, Carmen. How are you?" "I'm well, thanks. I'm calling because I wanted to tell you something." "Do you remember Miguel, Viviana's father?" "Yes, what about him?" "Well, it turns out we met at the wedding, when we were all trying to control our unsupervised kids. We started talking about what happened with you, and we both agreed that what they did to you was very wrong. And, well, we've been dating ever since, and he's told me more details. I wanted you to know that he also scolded Viviana for how they treated you." I chuckled softly. "Really? Viviana's father defended me?" "Yes, and quite strongly. He told Viviana that you had been incredibly generous by preparing the buffet and that using you as a babysitter without asking was unacceptable. He says he was very embarrassed when he found out the whole story." "I'm glad to hear that, Carmen. Mrs. Antonella, all of us parents at that wedding were very impressed with what you did. Not many people your age would have the courage to stand up for themselves like that. Sometimes, you have to defend yourself, no matter your age. Exactly. And we wanted you to know that we respect you a lot for that. That call filled me with an unexpected satisfaction. Not only had I defended my dignity within my family, but my example had resonated with others. 3 months after the wedding, Viviana invited me to lunch, just the two of us. We met at a quiet cafe, and we had the most honest conversation we'd ever had. Mrs. Antonella, can I tell you something personal? Of course, Viviana. Since the wedding, I've been going to therapy. Really? Why? Because I realized I have issues with mother figures. After my mom died, I developed defense mechanisms that included devaluing other older women to protect myself emotionally. That explains a lot. Yes. My therapist helped me understand why I felt so threatened by you at first. You represented everything I had lost, and instead of letting myself miss my mom, I decided to pretend that mothers weren't important. Viviana, that must have been very painful for you. It was, but I didn't realize it. I thought I was over my mom's death, but I had really just buried the pain. And how do you feel now? I feel freer. And I feel grateful to have a second chance with you. Viviana, I really appreciate you telling me this. And I'm glad to know you're working on yourself. Mrs. Antonella, would you let me start over? As if we were meeting for the first time. What do you mean? I want to really get to know you. Your stories, your dreams, your opinions, not as the mother-in-law who can be useful, but as Antonella, the person. I would like that very much, Viviana. Can I ask you a question? As many as you want. What dream of yours was left unfulfilled when you got married and had Marco? The question surprised me with its depth. I always wanted to write a book. About what? About my grandmother's recipes and our family stories. But I always found excuses not to start. So why don't you start now? Viviana, I'm 72 years old. It's not too late. Mrs. Antonella, you taught me that it's never too late to stand up for yourself and change a situation. Maybe it's not too late to fulfill a dream either. That conversation planted a seed in my mind. 6 months after the wedding, Marco and Viviana invited me to dinner to share some special news. Mom, we're pregnant, Marco announced with a huge smile. That's wonderful, I exclaimed, hugging them both. I'm going to be a grandmother. Mrs. Antonella, Viviana said, taking my hands. We want to ask you something important. Go on. We want you to be the grandmother who chooses how much she wants to be involved. We won't assume anything. We won't expect you to watch the baby whenever we want to go out. We want you to decide what kind of grandmother you want to be. And if you want to be the grandma who comes over to drink tea and tell stories once a week, that's perfect, Marco added. If you want to be the grandma who occasionally babysits, that's perfect too. You decide. I was moved to tears. Kids, that's all I ever wanted. The freedom to choose how to love my family. And what do you choose, Mrs. Antonella? Viviana asked. I choose to be the grandmother who is available when I'm truly needed, but who also has her own life, her own plans, and her own dreams. Perfect, Marco said. That's exactly what we want. A year after the disastrous wedding, I published my family recipe book. It was called Cooking with Love, Serving with Dignity, Recipes and Reflections from a Modern Grandmother. Viviana helped me promote it on social media, and Marco organized a launch party at their house. During the book presentation, I reflected on everything that had happened since that afternoon in my backyard. This book, I told the guests, is not just about recipes. It's about the importance of maintaining our dignity while serving the people we love. It's about the difference between giving out of love and being used for convenience. After the presentation, Viviana approached me. Mrs. Antonella, I have a confession to make. What is it? The person who inspired this book the most was you. Your courage to stand up for yourself taught me that you can love deeply and respect yourself at the same time. Viviana, that means a lot to me. Mrs. Antonella. Can I call you Mom Antonella from now on? I would love that, dear. That night, as I signed copies of my book, I realized that the decision not to go to that wedding was the best decision I had made in years. Not only had I regained my dignity, but I had taught my family the true meaning of mutual respect. I'm 73 now, with a grandchild on the way, a published book, and a family that treats me like the respected matriarch I always should have been. Sometimes, saying no is the most powerful way of saying yes to yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever felt used by your own family, remember that you deserve respect, no matter your age. If you've gone through something similar, share your experience in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know where you're listening from. It's never too late to reclaim your dignity.